Good evening, everyone. It's 5:30. I'm going to call this meeting of Planning and Zoning to order. The first item we're going to have is roll call. Shelby, you do that for us?
Yes, ma'am. Janice Menking,
Here.
Jim Giroux,
Here.
Daryl Whitworth, Jeff Lawrence,
Here.
Cindy Scroggins, here. Tom Musselman,
Here.
Holly Rickert, Tim Dooley,
Here.
Steve Thomas.
Here.
All right, thank you. So we have a quorum. We'll get started this evening with our item number 4. We're going to go into our public hearings right away. So we're going to go to public hearing number 4A, Z 2304, 112 East Schubert Street for a conditional use permit to operate an STR facility.
I move we go out of regular session into public hearing.
Second. I have a motion by Tim and a second by Tom. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right.
Mr. Lawyer, can I get an opinion on the recusal? I recused myself the last round when he was before us. I inspected his home and got paid to do it. Do I need to recuse myself for this?
What kind of inspection?
A pre-purchase inspection. I'm a home inspector.
No, you don't, not unless you made over $2,500.
Now, don't tell us about your fees. Don't tell us about your fees, Jerome.
So it's up to you whether to recuse on your own judgment, but as far as the law, it's up to you.
I just wanted a clarification.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for doing that. Mr. Ellis, thank you for joining us again.
Thank you. It's good to be back with you. I'm going to keep my presentation short today and jump to the questions, if that's okay. I know we had a public hearing last time I was here. There were some discrepancies between my review of the International Residential Code and some feedback we initially received from staff. Since then, been able to coordinate with Mr. Stout in the building department, and he confirmed that there is no issue with egress. It does comply with the IRC code, residential code requirements to that regard. For the third bedroom that we were talking about in the house. Stepping back a minute, this property is at 112 East Schubert. It's close to downtown. It is a historic home in the historic district. It's got 3 bedrooms in the upstairs. It was permitted under the new ordinance last year as a 2-bedroom short-term rental. And we've been operating under that permit since December of last year. We are requesting to modify that permit to make it a 3-bedroom because it has 3 rooms in the house. And while we're here, we're also requesting to have a short-term rental permit to operate when we finish out a carriage house on the property. So I'm happy to answer questions. But that's the sum of where we stand today.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone here who wants to make any comments on this public hearing?
Move we go out of public hearing in the regular session.
Second.
Motion by Tom, second by Jim. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Shelby, do you have comments?
Just a few. Thank you. That was a fantastic summary. That is essentially the differences that we see now. The building official was able to do a physical inspection of the main residence where we had the discrepancy for the 3rd bedroom unit or the 3rd bedroom. And the building official did determine that it does meet the necessary egress requirements. So with that in mind, and given the review that staff provided previously of the STR facility requirements, so this application is twofold. One for a 3-bedroom STR unit for the main residence, and the other request is to operate a secondary STR unit, which would be an STR facility, 2 units on the same property, a secondary STR unit as a 2-bedroom unit. So there'd be a total of 2 units on property, and that requires a conditional use permit to operate an STR facility. With all of those requests in place, staff recommends approval.
All right, thank you. So we are on action item number 5A or Z 2304. Are there any questions or comments from the commission?
I have a question. Is it normal procedure for all of these drawings to come in to scale?
I think it depends on the project. Typically, a site plan, it comes into scale, and when we request floor plans, we review those.
Okay. So are they the one and the same that you would put in the packet? Because that is where the rub was the last time. Because we assumed that based on what we saw in the packet, it was not to scale.
Yes, sir.
and it was not going to comply. So question is, can we get accurate information with these packets to where we can judge that on our own without embarrassing the applicant or ourselves?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Or Mr. Dilly, could staff just put in, we're talking about bedrooms, then they can just write in there complies, within the bedroom. So at least, because we don't get the dimensions of the bedroom, and we don't know what short of going back and rereading the law, how many square feet you need to have. But if staff has that, if you can just make a note on the bedroom, C or, complies, so that way we know everything's okay.
Yes, sir.
That work?
Fine with me, just as long as we have a better understanding
Right.
of what we're looking at. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? It's
Just the
verbal in here.
verbal.
I think there was an updated staff memo in connection with the hearing today that confirmed Mr. Stout's findings.
I move that we approve it as presented. Second.
I have a motion by Tim, a second by Jim. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for bringing it back. Okay, let's go to public hearing number 4B, Z 2307, to consider a conditional use permit for section 3.110 to operate an STR unoccupied in an R2 zoned area located in a historic district on property located at 501 East Creek Street. I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Move we go into public hearing.
I have a motion by Tom.
I'll second.
Second. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All right. Cindy, you had down. Cindy got that.
One more time, the same refusal question. I just want to be clear.
Did you inspect it?
No, I didn't inspect it. I'm not even too sure what the property is, but I do own and operate an STR.
Okay. If you don't have any ownership or your family doesn't have any ownership or interest in this particular property, then you don't necessarily have a conflict. You have conflicts if you own an STR and we're talking about a matter that affects your STR. So in this case, no.
Thank you for that clarification. All right. Yes, ma'am. Please
Hi.
make your presentation.
My name's Kathy Langer. I've owned this property for 5 years. It's been an active short-term rental. Actually, before I purchased it, it was an active short-term rental. When I purchased it 5 years ago, I continued, and I think that's it. I didn't realize that I needed to renew my permit, and so that's why I lost my permit, and so I'm just trying to get my permit back.
Okay. All right. Is there anyone here who would like to make comments on this application?
Move we go out of public hearing back into regular session.
Second.
All right. I have a motion by Tim, a second by Jim. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Shelby, you make the presentation?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit per section 3.110 of the zoning ordinance to operate as an STR unoccupied in an R2 zoned area located in the historic overlay district at 501 East Creek Street. The subject tract is located on the corner of South Elk Street and East Creek Street and is bordered by R2 zoning to the north, south, east, and west. The majority of the surrounding R2 zone properties are currently utilized as STRs. This property previously had an STR non-conforming permit, meaning she was permitted under the 2018 ordinance that expired on August 31st of 2022. Due to zoning changes that went into effect on April 1st of 2022, now that she's requesting a permit today, the applicant must request a conditional use permit to operate as an STR unoccupied. The applicant is compliant with hot remittance and has never received a notice of violation. The applicant requests approval for a 3-bedroom short-term rental unit that provides 3 parking spaces on site one in the garage, and 2 on the street, which meets the required parking calculations, which are calculated at 1 per bedroom. Section 5.460, which is the review and evaluation criteria for conditional use permits, contains 13 items that must be considered when reviewing a conditional use permit. Of these 13 items, staff has found that the applicant has met or responded to all of the requirements. And given the majority of the short-term rental uses in this block of East Creek Street, staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit to operate an STR unoccupied, conditioned upon the review and inspection and approval of an STR permit application and payment of applicable fees.
All right. Thank you. So we're on action item number 5B, C-2307. Anybody have any questions or comments?
So I don't have Darryl sitting next to me with the zoning map on his laptop. Is this R2 or R1?
It's R2, yes, sir.
And just for clarification, an R2 can operate under the current zone as up to 1 that doesn't require a CUP, so why are we missing the panels?
It requires a CUP because this property is located in the historic district.
Oh, historic district. Okay,
Yes,
sorry, I
sir.
missed that. Okay, thank you.
So I have a question also, at that corner of South Elk and Creek Street. Is your parking on, South Elk, or it goes down to the river? How much parking do you have on South Elk?
Street parking is on Creek Street. South Elk is where my driveway is, and there's
Okay.
driveway
My
parking.
question is, how many cars can you park? Will your guests park in the driveway? Because that turn at South Elk and South Creek, that's a really narrow turn there, with cars stacked up. And so I'm just wondering if part of her parking is on South Elk and in the driveway, that would alleviate some of that.
3 cars can actually park on the street on Creek. At least 3 cars. 2.
Yeah. Because how many STRs? I mean, I'm not opposed to the application. It's just that I travel that street every day, and there are a lot of STRs down there, and that's a very hard corner to navigate when it's busy. So I just want to make sure that as much off creek parking that's available is being used.
Page 59 of your packet contains a land use map that shows all of the active STRs in this 200-foot vicinity. And on the applicant's site plan, it shows how she has her parking laid out for the unit, and that she does have driveway access off of South Elk Street.
And how many parking spaces? 3? So
2 in the driveway.
no,
and
how
1
many
in
is she required to have?
She's required to have 3 for a
Okay,
3-bedroom.
so 2 in the driveway and one on the street.
Well, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
But there's actually 2 on the street?
There's 2 on the street, and she can park 3 in the property,
Okay.
1 in the garage.
Okay.
Anybody else have questions or comments?
Second.
A motion by Jim, second by Tom. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, let's go to the approval of the minutes before we get to the next
Janice.
item.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
So we noticed we had more public hearings that were noticed in the newspaper and with letters that went out. Those applications for Oak Haven and East Austin Street and Whitney Street will not be heard this evening. The applicants have decided to postpone those. So Blankfield, are they all coming back in May? I don't think Oak Haven, but Whitney Street and East Austin will most likely come back in May, but we'll post again. It's just the timing of the letters and the notice to the paper, and then the applicant pulled it. So I'm sorry, we should put something on the door that those public hearings will not be held tonight.
Is that what y'all are here for? The rest of y'all here?
What is the Oak Haven? What is that?
Potentially May. Yes, we will send out letters.
Thank you all for coming.
Sorry.
Hope you come back again. Thanks for that. Okay, approval of minutes. Polly's not here to make corrections.
I'll second.
All right, motion by Jenna, second by Cindy. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, all right. Those are approved. All right, we'll go to discussion items. 6A, the director's report.
I have a question before we go there. Are we going to have a discussion about, can we be involved in listening into this director's report as far as the 2 items that are listed, as far as 3 of us that have STRs?
Yes,
We can listen.
you can listen to this report.
Thank you.
All right, the first item is the comp plan update. We're moving along. The consultants will be back on the 25th and 26th for our second open house. And that's going to be at the Pioneer Pavilion over at Lady Bird Park. So mark your calendars for Tuesday, April 25th. That'll be another come and go style event from 3:30 to 7. And we also have our parks specific survey out. So you can scan the QR code and take that 7-question survey. And we'll use those results as we move forward with the Parks Master Plan that we are doing concurrently. So comp plan, and then do we want to talk about the memo first?
Oh, yes,
Under this.
we have a memo here. I don't know that it's been distributed.
Yes,
And has it?
I think everybody
Okay.
has. Yeah, let's send
Which,
it out.
last week we had a question about conflicts of interest for members of the city council and the planning and zoning commission who have an interest in a short-term rental property here. We tried to explain that in more detail in this memo, but it's important that when you have questions, you ask them in advance, because everything, as you know, on conflict of interest under state law and under our city ordinance, ethics ordinance, require a case-by-case review before we can give advice on whether a conflict exists or not. But in general, the way it works is, if there is a matter before your board that affects licensing, permitting, or operations of STRs in general in Fredericksburg, you should declare conflict and not participate in those matters. However, as you saw tonight, we had some zoning issues brought up related to STRs that do affect STRs. That's different because that particular matters we had tonight on the conditional use permits do not in any way affect other STRs, including those you may have an interest in. So there's no conflict with you participating in those type of matters. But anything that in general in the ordinance that we're talking about that will affect, again, permitting or operations of STRs in Fredericksburg, you should declare the conflict. The other thing I wanted to mention, and this is true regardless of what is brought before the P&Z, whether it's an STR or not, is there is also a proximity conflict. And that means if you own property or a member of your family own property close to or one of the items that's on the agenda, like for instance, if you were someone's asking for a zone change and your property's within 200 feet, you would receive a statutory notice of that particular zone change. That proximity is enough to where you should declare a conflict of interest on that as well. That's a different concept, but that's one that's been created by the courts. And so just be aware of that one as well. If something comes forward on a particular zoning matter, make sure it's not too close to your property. And that's really all we have on that issue tonight, and that's what the memo is about.
Okay, so something that I saw that was different on this than what we heard the other night is when we have our next group meeting with City Council.
Mm-hmm.
And if a member has to recuse themselves because they own an STR. This one, it says that they can speak as a member of the public during the public comment period.
The two exceptions are is you can speak about if there's something before a board. Now, the joint meeting is going to be different, but if you have an item before the commission, for instance, on your own property or family member's property, you recuse and step down, and you can still come and speak to the board on the property. If there's a public comment section or public comment is called for, you can speak. But that didn't happen the other day.
Oh,
There was no-
I thought there was one time they asked for public comment.
We didn't have any public comment on the agenda.
Because it was a workshop,
You can have public comment at a workshop, but
it was
the
not
difference
posted
is
as a.
it's not posted as public comment. Because there has to be a line there where you draw on whether you're speaking as a member of the public or as a member of.
So it's not public comment when the mayor asks, or when someone that from the commission
Typically
or the
not.
council asks somebody in the crowd a question, that's not considered.
No,
public
that's
comment.
not. Actually,
Okay.
that is not. And in fact, the statute which requires us to take public comment at city council level kind of makes that clear.
Okay.
So that's what we recommend that you do. And you're not required, of course, to make any comment. It's just that it's not considered to be, in that circumstance, a conflict with the state law.
Thank you. So could we request to have public comment added to the next meeting? Would y'all like to see that?
Sure.
I mean,
We
that's
don't
up
have
to the mayor too.
Just
if
a
he wants to
general
have it.
public comment? Thought we had it.
No, not on here. I'm talking about if we have that, the next joint meeting with the city council on that.
If you'll pass off.
I mean, if you will. I mean, I don't know whether mayor wants to have that. Well, Polly will be. And Cindy will. You're not here? Okay, well, none of them will be here.
No, we do
Except
still need a
Cindy.
quorum, mind you, for PNC. So even if it's an agenda that you can't vote on that item, you can still help be here to have a quorum and call the meeting to order.
And then they have to recuse after we call it to order. So we record the quorum first, and then they recuse.
No, I mean, I'm Polly. No, you have three. You're gonna have three. I don't know.
So the date, city council would like it on the 18th. There's a little discretion you have if you want an evening or afternoon. But looking at April 18th.
Yeah, I know. And Polly's gonna be out. You're gonna be out.
So we had a question last time. You had mentioned that just listening is a conflict of interest. Can you clarify the listening comment that you made last time to us?
Yes. It's not, maybe listening is the wrong word. It's deliberating is in the statute, and deliberating has been defined as sitting and listening and receiving information. So if you're sitting on this dais and you're receiving information, you are deliberating and you're participating in the meeting. And so when the conflict is declared, that's why you should step down, and then you're not participating technically in deliberating.
So if we're technically not listening, we've recused if we're sitting.
No,
You're not deliberating.
You're not deliberating.
deliberating.
Yeah, you can listen.
We can listen, we just
Right.
can't.
We need you to listen so that there's a quorum.
See, and that's one of the things that is hard to get past for most lay people who are new to this issue is they say, well, nobody ever voted. Well, I didn't talk. Doesn't do anything. It's, you're a member of the board and you're sitting there and listening, receiving information, you're deliberating, and that is the word. It's not voting and it's not anything else. So that's why we ask you to step down.
Plus, it's a little bit different than previous. We all participated in that current ordinance.
Okay.
Including voting.
Okay.
But you did recuse yourself on certain items or certain sections that, right? Oh,
Based on city attorney recommendation.
so does the 18th work, afternoon or evening?
Is there anybody else? I know there's 3 that can't make it. What about you? Steve?
Well, it have to move a lot of things to make that happen, which if I were participating, I wouldn't mind moving things, but I'm just gonna not participate. Too crazy about moving it. I mean, but we need a quorum, so I don't want to jeopardize that.
What happens if we don't have a quorum?
You still have four. You have four and outside of some down.
Well, I know, but we have 3 that aren't going to be there at all. If she's gone, that we would
Need
just have a
5.
quorum if everybody else shows.
Need 5.
We have 5. We'd have 5 of us if everybody else shows. Yeah, I don't have.
No, he didn't know. I'm sure he doesn't know that.
So if we don't have a quorum, can the rest of us sit and listen and talk, or do we have to?
You can sit in the audience. There will not be a meeting convened except for the city hall. It would be better to schedule when you could have a quorum, of course.
So Daryl would.
We can check with Daryl.
be okay?
But assuming the 18th works, do we prefer afternoon or evening? This council has a meeting that morning.
Where are we going to have it, out of the park?
Yes.
Or do they meet here? I've got.
Well, they'll meet here, and then they'll recess and get lunch and reconvene with you at Lady Bird.
Well, do we need to reconvene at Lady Bird, or can we stay here so y'all don't have to go on the 7th? Doesn't matter. Trying to make it easy on city staff
Yeah, I think the city manager likes the more informal style
out there. Huh? Okay. So we decide morning or evening. It's got to be afternoon on the 18th, then, right? Or evening of the 18th.
I don't agree with either one. That's true, as long as our taxes.
What time?
And it all depends on Daryl.
We'll follow up.
But it's definitely we're setting it for the 18th.
As of now, yes, if Daryl can meet, if he's unavailable and we're unable to get a quorum, then reconsider.
All right. Next week.
I think the action they would take would be to put it on, to give staff direction to actually open up the amendment or open up the ordinance. And that's when we would set the public hearings and do the mailing. So
Do we anticipate?
you wouldn't be adopting anything, just giving staff their direction.
Do we anticipate that this issue will be finalized one way or the other before the election in May?
I don't think we'll have enough time without more special meetings to get 2 public hearings in.
We had numerous special meetings, we had public meetings so people could give their input last time we did this. I would hope that we would give this process as much time as we gave the last one. So.
Question asked.
I don't know that
It's not been set as like a deadline. It's not a drop dead. No, nobody's trying. There's not an objective to get it done by then.
So question for me, when it comes to us and we're deliberating and voting, is that going to be a section by section decision that you're going to advise us on what we can and can't vote on or discuss? Now, after the workshops are done, once it comes to us, are we going to be totally out?
Well, you're probably out. It probably would be a conflict for everything in the ordinance that affects the way STRs are operated or permitted. And I don't know what's gonna be in the amendments that we're thinking to all of.
That's a potential, sure.
Yeah.
That- something wrong with it.
And there's really nothing special about STRs in this analysis. It's true for a hardware store too, or insurance business, or any type of real estate. Same analysis. I mean, if you owned a pool hall, you know, we'd vote on how we license pool halls
Oh, what?
or participate.
You have anything else?
That was it for me.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Jim?
It's a great short meeting.
I'll second.
Second by Cindy. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Good work.
We are adjourned, 6 o'clock.
We need to go talk.